There we go.
Am I centered okay, or?
Yes, you
Because I
look
can't
great.
see my screen, so, okay.
Oh, yes. No, you look great. All right. Well, it's 3 o'clock, so in the interest of respecting everybody's time, I'm going to go ahead and jump right in. My name is Selena Hall, and I'm the Denver WIN Professional Development Lead. Thank you guys all for being here today. It looks like we've already got 65 people in the room, and I'm sure we'll have some more to show up as well. Today we have Carol Evanoff. Carol is an author, speaker, and consultant, and she's a retired LM Resident Director of Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific. She had a 35-year career with Lockheed Martin. At the end of Carol's presentation, we will have time for Q&A. So if you'd like to submit a question, either use the raise hand feature or use the or enter your question into the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen, and then I can read your question out to Carol. Today, Carol's going to speak to us about how to go about developing your 5-year plan. I don't know about the rest of you. I've been asked that question and felt very put on the spot a few times because I didn't really have a great answer. So she's going to help us kind of figure out how to develop a 5-year plan. So I'm going to give a brief introduction now. You've probably heard about women who broke the glass ceiling, that barrier that kept women from advancing to the highest levels of corporate life. Carol Evanoff is one of those women, and now she's ready to share a lifetime of truly hard-earned wisdom to help others achieve their own dreams. There isn't a more male-centric work environment than a major defense contractor who supplies materials and services to the U.S. military. Yet that's where Carol spent her entire 35-year career. She rose through the ranks from an hourly employee to supervisory, then management positions. And along the way, she earned her degree in management and attended numerous postgraduate institutes all across the country to study advanced leadership skills. Throughout her career, Carol often became the first woman to hold each new position she attained. And from the beginning, she made it her mission to help women and minorities achieve the same level of success in their own careers. Over the course of her long and acclaimed career in management and personnel development, Carol has developed her own system to help employees analyze what's been holding them back from advancement. Using her tools, they've been able to bridge gaps in their experience and training in order to be more competitive in a tough job market and move into positions of leadership. She detailed her process in her book, Mapping Your Career Success. And after the positive reception of that book, she also wrote a manager's edition with new chapters teaching executives how to guide their teams through her system. So we'll be providing you all with Carol's contact information at the end of the presentation today, in case you're interested in reaching out to Carol for her mentoring services. On behalf of Denver WIN, I want to welcome Carol, and we thank you so much for being here and being willing to speak with us today, Carol.
Thank you. Obviously, employee development and helping women succeed is my passion. So this is fun to do, and I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone today. Next slide. What I'm going to be going over today is what's your dream job, what's your passion, what's your current path, is there a new path, strategic considerations, issues and concerns, picking a future, and what is needed. Next, okay, sit back. What do you want to be when you grow up? Have you thought about it? Do you have a piece of paper in front of you? Have you said, gee, I want to be a starship captain? That's what I wanted to be, a starship captain. So I had to ask myself, well, what is it about that job that's fun and exciting? And so being a long way away from your leadership and having your own place to run is exactly what SwiftPAC ended up being for me, the Strategic Weapons Facility Pacific. So you got to think about what is it you want to do, what's exciting to you, what is it that feeds you, what kind of job do you actually really want to go to every day, what do you read, what do you watch on TV, what do you love, what makes you feel accomplished. I know halfway through my career, I realized that actually being associated with actual hardware that would go and fly and accomplish things really gave me a sense of accomplishment, more so than doing work on paper. So that kind of helped guide the direction I wanted to go. Does what you do matter? I find a lot of people later in their career end up changing careers because they don't feel like the job that they're doing makes a difference, that it matters. And so it's important for you to understand the job that you have and what's in it for you and what's in it for society. I felt like the Fleet Ballistic Missile Program was essential to America to keep us safe. And so to me, it really mattered. So that was a real strong point for that program. What characteristics of your dream job, what characteristics in your passion match your real world? Are you a people person? Are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Are you, what I found for myself is my biggest passion was developing people. And I found that the best way to develop people was to be in leadership and grow them and teach them and be able to groom them to do their jobs in leadership, to do their jobs in every field that I had in my organization. I had 430 people at the end, but my first job, I was 23. I had 105 women. They were all in entry-level positions. I said, gee, what can I do to develop them? What can I do to increase their footprint in the company? How can they move up and move on? And so I started looking at the other jobs in the company and what kind of training and experience people needed to get to those jobs, and made arrangements with the colleges to teach some classes. And so the first year I was in leadership, I lost 100 people to promotions. So that's how it all started. That kind of gave me a boost to say, yes, I want to keep doing this my whole career. And so everywhere I went, every job I had, I tried to develop everybody that was willing to be developed. Next slide. You have to ask yourself, are you on the path you want to be on? Do you look forward to going to work? What satisfaction do you get from your job? Do you see yourself growing in your field? It's great to become the technical expert. It's great to be able to become the mentor. Right now, I'm working in a job where I'm consulting, where I'm considered a graybeard. The first Fleet Ballistic Missile female graybeard, because the term only had to do with some of the old men. But you know, do you want to be the technical expert, or do you want to be in leadership? Do you understand what leadership is? Have you tried leadership to see if that's what you really want? Are you in a career that you don't like, that you don't enjoy, and that you don't really want to go to work? Well, then you want to start over, and you can do that too. You can lay out a plan to move into a different career, doing a different technology, doing whatever your heart desires, but you got to lay out a plan. Luck is not a strategy for success. Next slide. First, start with a self-inventory. There is a Myers-Briggs test online that will test you, and it'll tell you what some of your personality characteristics are, which can help kind of guide you as to the kinds of things you might want to do. I found the Myers-Briggs was interesting because when I took it when I was 19, it said I was extremely introverted. When I took it when I was 45, it said I was extremely extroverted. So don't necessarily expect the scores to stay the same over time, because some of it is you have to push yourself to be what you need to be in order to be in the job you want to have. And so being an introvert by nature, I had to force myself to be more extroverted to do a leadership position. Emotional intelligence, are you good at reading people? Are you good at reading situations? What's your temperament? Do you blow up easy? Do you give up too easy? What's your personality? What are your innate talents? Can any of those innate talents be applied to a job? What are your social skills? What are your communication skills? Do you like to give presentations? I think the three things I hated to do in high school was a lot of reading and giving presentations. And guess what I did when I got my last job, and I had for 16 years? I did a lot of reading and I did a lot of presentations. So just because you don't like it doesn't mean that isn't going to be what you end up doing, because it does give you the satisfaction that you eventually are looking for once you learn about yourself and what really motivates you. Next slide. Strategic considerations. How old is the technology that you're involved in? Are you planning a career in a field that's going to go away? Are you in an emerging technology like artificial intelligence? What technology are you following? If you're using social media, are you watching the companies that are doing the kinds of technology that you're interested in? And no matter what the technology is, even if it's if you want to be a diversity manager, or if you want to be, some of the soft skills, if you want to be in HR, those things and those skills and those technologies also have their learning and innovation and things going on, but also in the technical fields. Do you watch what Boeing's doing? Do you watch what Lockheed is doing in other organizations at Lockheed? Are you getting news feeds in your LinkedIn? Are you getting news feeds in your Facebook? Are you keeping up on what's going on? When I talk to students at the colleges about laying out a plan for their career, I tell them you need to have a LinkedIn account that's having you watch the technologies and the companies that you're going to be interested in applying to when you graduate. Have you read strategic plans? Do you have any idea what your industry or government is heading out to do? Are you familiar with some of the things that are going on, like the cloud and AI? Do you know what your customers want? What are your assumptions? Are you basing your career on assumptions that no longer are applicable, or are they assumptions that are valid into the future? What are the possible futures for your technology, for your career? You need to think about those things. Next slide. Issues and concerns. Fear of doing new things. Women especially have fear. I tell them get comfortable with fear, because if you don't have a little bit of fear, that probably means you're not learning and growing. So you want to get comfortable with trying new things and not let the fear stop you from learning and growing and doing the things you want to do. Do you have concerns about your job with safety issues? Do you have any legal issues or changes? Is there intellectual property issues? Are there risks? Who's your competition? Are you getting involved in a program that the competitor is superior, and so you really are wasting your time for the next 2 years in a competition that you don't really believe you're going to win? What are the paradigm shifts? Are there paradigm shifts happening in technology? I think in the past, we built missiles by laying up composite cloth on molds and then curing it in autoclaves. Now they just program a 3D printer and they can pretty much print any piece of hardware you want, including motors for rockets. So there's paradigm shifts happening all the time in industry. Make sure that you're not sitting in a field where you become obsolescent. Pay scales. Pay attention to who's getting paid the big bucks. If you want to make sure that you earn your fair share, then you need to understand what the pay scales are and who makes more money. When I was 19 and I was in junior college, I went to the Career Center. And one of the first things I looked up was how much money people made. And I thought, oh, gee, management people make the most. So it's kind of interesting how that goes. Is the field you're in something that fits with your ethics? Are you in a job that you don't believe fits with your ethics? Those things are things you need to consider. Next slide. As you take a look at the org charts around you, be aware that a career built on a pyramid is going to be a lot sturdier and more secure for women especially than trying to go up one ladder. I think one of the things I saw a lot at Lockheed was women who were waiting. And I remember I had a mentee and I said to her, Carolyn, are you waiting for someone to die? And she looked at me and paused and, oh my God, yes. I said, there's nothing wrong with applying for jobs outside your organization that you're currently in. Lockheed's a big company and they have manager jobs all over the company. They have technical jobs all over the company. Don't be afraid to move within the company. And of course she applied. The second open she applied for, she got. So off she went. Her career grew and she went up a couple more levels. So The next slide. What is needed? Continually learning, keeping your resume updated every year, researching the next job, researching the job path. You need to select and request mentors and sponsors. You need to do a gap analysis between where you are today and where you want to go and where you want to be when you grow up. You need to lay out a development plan year by year and continually assess and gain skill sets. Work-life balance. In some cases, when my daughter was a teenager, I made sure I had a job that I could go home on time every day because she was cutting school. So sometimes you have to make allowances for work-life balance and do what you have to do. Travel and commuting, you have to think about, okay, I can take this job, but now I'm going to be on the road for 2 hours. So you need to take, travel, commuting into account. How often can you be away from home? Do you have new babies that you need to take care of? So you need to work all that into your goals and your aspirations and take a look at the jobs out there. Now, of course, the new thing is virtual jobs, which I think are fantastic. I think that's going to open a lot of things up to a lot more people. Unfortunately, Lockheed has a lot of programs that require security clearances, and so a lot of that is not going to happen remotely. But anyway, the next slide. Trust me, luck is not a strategy for your success. It's on page 186 of my book. The reason I went so fast is because I want to have questions. I want you to ask me questions and find out what I can do to help you find your path.
All right, thanks so much, Carol. I caught on to a couple of things that you said, and I think a couple of points that I can bring up really quick while people are kind of entering their questions or thinking of them. I think that what you mentioned about paying attention to what other companies in your industry are doing by following them on Facebook or on Twitter or on LinkedIn or however you get news about different companies is a really good idea right now. Even if you don't end up determining that you want to apply for a position with another company, we're kind of in a paradigm shift right now. I work on HLS, and as probably many of you know, we're in kind of an interesting partnership with Blue Origin on that. And those kinds of teaming and partnership agreements, I think, are going to become more and more common at Lockheed, at least in space and commercial civil space. And so it's good to keep an eye on what your competitors and your maybe potential teammates are working on, so that you can know when an opportunity comes up, so that for a positive teaming agreement. So that's one thing that I noticed about what you'd said. And the other thing is, now that we've gotten so good at working virtually, it seems like that now might be an okay time to start thinking about applying for a position within Lockheed that's maybe not in your geographical location, because it seems like more than ever we have an opportunity to take those kinds of chances and maybe take a position that's on the other side of the country, because we can do it virtually now. So there's a couple of questions that people have entered into. A few questions already have popped up into the Q&A. Again, if you want to ask a question, you can unmute yourself, I think, or you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. But if you can also enter a question into the Q&A. So the first one is from Monica Pizlaru, and I apologize if I'm mispronouncing your name. How do you create a plan that stays open to the changes in all of the things mentioned?
How do you create a plan that stays open?
Yes, open to the changes and all of the things that you've mentioned already.
I think that's the part of building a pyramid, where you need to look at adjacent jobs that you can go in to explore and get more data and get more technical competence across several different jobs in the same field, going from missiles to aircraft to satellites to so there's a lot of technologies, and I think moving across the technologies will help keep you more relevant versus sticking to one technology. like glass tubes. I have a friend that did his whole career in glass tubes, and he ended up being like the only person in Lockheed that did that when he retired about 5 years ago. But you know, a lot of people stay in one field like composites, or they stay in one field like electronics. I think it's important to broaden your knowledge of technology, so that, for one thing, technologies have a tendency to merge. They'll put electronics into composites. They'll put, you know, smart technology into different kinds of things. So I think trying to stay abreast of several different technologies rather than just specializing in one.
Mm-hmm. Okay. The next question is from Charles. And Charles asks, have you ever felt fear that your manager would hold it against you that you're looking or applying for a new role? That's a good one.
Well, there's two things you need to know about that. One, there are managers that do that. Mm-hmm. And number two, there are managers that don't do that. So what you have to do is kind of feel out your manager. If you believe that they're somebody that's going to hold it against you, you do have the ability to apply for jobs without your manager knowing. But I have found that if you can get your managers buy-in and get them to buy into your development and your growth, that it's much better to be able to move that way. Mm-hmm. In my career at Lockheed, I actually helped people leave the company and go somewhere else. So it just depends on what kind of manager you have.
Would you advise?
But yeah, be aware that be aware there are some that will punish you. And definitely. If that's the kind of boss you have, you don't want to be there anyway.
Right. That's very true. Would you advise?
Long term it's bad. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Would you advise, whenever you had mentioned earlier coming up with a development plan, would you advise trying to do that with your manager in an attempt to kind of see where they are and feel them out and see if they're going to be supportive of you as an employee in your growth? Or is that something that you recommend doing on your own?
No, all your development plans, you want your managers to buy into them.
Okay, excellent. Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, here's a question from Isabel Johnson. Isabel asks, if you're interested in a leadership role, do you recommend taking your first management role within a team that you're already familiar with? Or can you also go into another area of the business for your first management role?
I think you can do either one. There's pros and cons on both, because sometimes when you become a leader in a group that you've been a peer in, it can cause some difficulty in changing roles on the team. Mm-hmm. But I think you can be successful. I've done both, and I think either one works, and whatever you feel most comfortable in. I think the biggest problem I see, especially for women, is they tend to stay in a job a lot longer, significantly longer than they need to, because of two things. One, they feel committed to the team. They feel committed to the mission, and they have fear about taking on new jobs. So I think you have to be careful that you don't limit yourself, and that you can move on and keep growing. So
okay, excellent. Excellent. Okay, here's another question. This one's anonymous. Hiring managers have suggested applying for stretch assignments to break into a new field. The roadblock is that I see jobs posted that require experience with the tools in that field. I can explore trainings online, but it doesn't give you a lot of experience. Any suggestions?
That's where your development plan comes in. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be the resident director at SwiftPak, and I had no facility experience. So I was a division manager of electronics, and I went to my boss and said, my long-range career goal is to work at one of the facilities. How can I get facility experience? And so we wrote my development plan for me to take a rotation at a facility, and which is what I did, which allowed me then to compete for the job. So what you want to be able to do is try to negotiate your boss to let you sit in for somebody on vacation, to sit in somebody for maternity leave, sit in for somebody who's out sick. Use those kinds of opportunities, or even just being able to get some training assignments in other organizations. And you need to be able to get them to buy in on your career and your career path. Right. And it's important to ask for assignments.
Okay. Ben K asks, how would you go about discussing your 5-year plan with a manager?
You make an employee development mentoring session with them. It's their job to mentor you. They know that at Lockheed. So they know that that's their job, part of their job. And so what you may, if you don't know your boss very well, you may want to go in and just talk about what your next 2 years is looking like, where you want to go in the next 2 years. If you know your boss and they know you, then certainly share the 5-year plan and say, you know, this is what I really want for my career. Can we lay out a path for me to get there in 5 years? And most people, believe it or not, are willing to help their employees grow. And I've been astounded many, many times about people being willing to help their employees grow.
Okay. Let's see, here's another one. This is from Josh Croney. How much exploring of different opportunities to gain breadth can be considered a negative reflection of you and your character? I think, and maybe it's the implication is if you change jobs a lot, maybe it starts to look like you can't hold down a job. So is that something that you've encountered?
I had 26 different jobs.
Oh, wow.
At Lockheed.
But over 35 years, that's a long time.
Over 35 years. That's still 26 jobs in 35 years.
That's a lot, yes.
That's a lot.
It is.
The key is that they have to see you as being successful at the jobs you've been in.
Okay.
They have to see that you've made a contribution. If all you've done is warm the seat and then move to another seat, then they rightfully will see you as somebody that's really not contributing, that you're just bouncing from job to job. But especially if you take on jobs that have challenges and you're able to overcome those challenges, you know, many times I'd get organizations that were behind schedule, overrun, had employee issues, and then by a year later they were on schedule, under budget, you know, and I had gotten rid of the bad employees. So a lot of it is you need to make sure people see that you accomplish things in every job you have, and that you're contributing to Lockheed's bottom line and to Lockheed's success. And then in which case, then 26 jobs in 35 years will not seem like too many.
Okay. Okay. Here's another question from an anonymous attendee. What do you do if you know your dream job isn't the way that your industry is going? So, i.e. not software or AI. That's a good one.
I think that what you want to do is find an industry that is going in the direction that you're going.
So even
if that's your dream job,
right? So an industry jump mid-career, you don't see as a negative or bad thing. Somebody wanting to get out of the aerospace business and into something else, if it more closely aligns with where their passions lie, is okay.
Absolutely, absolutely, because you'll be a good performer.
Right.
And the group that gets you will see you as a good performer. And they'll see that your passion will bring a lot to the job.
Okay.
And I've seen lots of people change career fields in mid-span, and it's always been very good because they're good performers. Performance is the key. Number one, you got to make sure you're performing and you're doing a good job. You got to be a stellar employee. If you want to sell yourself, if you want to sell, give me some more training, expand my knowledge, they're only going to want to invest in you if they believe they're investing in something that is worthwhile.
Right. Okay. What is your advice on not losing your passion? I know that it's very easy for that to happen. You start out as a, you know, fresh out of college grad, and you're raring to go and you're ready to just take the world by the tail. But, you know, after 10 years of working day to day, you get a little run down sometimes. What is your advice for keeping your passion?
I think I've gotten discouraged numerous times in my career. I've been in jobs where I literally did not get any leadership feedback for 5 years. So it's hard to keep your passion. It's hard to keep your stellar performance when you're in those kinds of environments. But what you have to do is start looking outside yourself. And what is it I can do, whether you help people around you, whether you mentor others, whether you have to create the excitement and energy in your own life, start to learn something new. Go find out if there's a class you can take to find something new about the field that you're interested in.
Right.
Go network with people who do what you do so that you're around people who are excited about what you're excited about. And those kinds of things will end up feeding you and feeding your passion and feeding you energy that you need.
Excellent. And we have so many resources at our fingertips. People have mentioned in the chat, and I wanted to bring it up too, that, through Atlas now, we actually have a tool that's there just to help us develop a development plan for ourselves. And there's also a number of training resources that, like Carol just mentioned, where you can read about, different technologies or different areas that you might be interested in where you haven't been in an opportunity to gain that actual real world experience. You can still go and learn about them and make yourself prepared all through the tools that Lockheed has to offer. So that's something to keep in mind. Let's see. Kamitria asks, do you have any suggestions for gaining more experience, like more hands-on ideas for gaining experience in areas slightly outside of your field and specifically outside of your company?
Getting experience in adjacent fields?
Yes.
Or in other companies. I think the best way to do that is to know people in those other companies, to know people in those other fields. And that means networking. So you need to get involved with the different groups that are in your field, whether it's Society of Women Engineers, whether it's Triple E engineering, people. There's lots of technical organizations. There's a lot of networking organizations. There's a lot of them you can find on LinkedIn. And then you can find even local ones on LinkedIn. And the other is, I had a engineer at Boeing that was interested in designing a habitat for the moon and Mars. And she was a electrical engineer on aircraft. So the first thing we did was try to figure out what's required for her job. And so we did research online as to who was in that field and what they were doing. And actually we found some white papers. And we actually contacted some of these technical experts that wrote these white papers, and they were willing to sit down with her and talk to her.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
You'd be surprised what you can find out and what you can learn, even if it's in a field that's, and then what she ended up doing is she ended up going to Arizona State and getting her master's in that field and then moving into that field.
Oh, wow.
But I was almost stumped because I was so used to helping people within a company like Lockheed and moving within the company or moving to an adjacent job, which is a simple thing. But she was doing a literal jump from one technology to another. But what she came to me after a Society of Women Engineering talk was, she says, I feel like my life has been wasted and it didn't matter. She says, I want to do something with the rest of my life where I feel like I've done something that matters. And I said, okay, well, what do you want to be when you grow up then? So that's how it started the conversation. Right. So
that's really interesting. It's kind of a different take on networking, to reach out to people that you've seen who've published papers maybe in a field that you are interested in getting into. That's not something that I would have thought of, as an introvert. Networking always feels like networking to me, and you have this image in your mind of what a networking event is going to be like, but this is a way to network that is definitely unique. Okay.
Yes.
Let's see.
So out there, call me, email me if you need suggestions on how to get information or find it or whatever. If I don't know the answer, I'll find somebody who knows the answer that can help you. Don't be afraid to call me. Believe me, I'm still mentoring women at Lockheed that, I just had one I was mentoring make manager and just this past month. So I'm still actively mentoring Lockheed people. So feel free, email me, call me, talk to me. It feeds my passion and I'll help you feed yours.
Yeah, and if you'd like to say a few words too about the books that you've written, I want to make sure everybody realizes that the book that Carol's written is really, it's a tool that you can use to develop your 5-year plan. Really, it's a workbook, so it's gonna cause you to do some serious thinking and soul searching and some writing of your own to kind of develop this 5-year plan. I don't, if you would like to say more about it, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. And if you can't afford the book, if you email me, I will send you an ebook copy.
Oh, that's very
You can get the
kind.
book for free.
Thank you.
Okay. I did the book because I want to help women and minorities succeed. And that's why it's out there. And it's written like a manual. It's like, how to repair your tractor. It's got spaces for you to fill in. It's a workbook. It's not a novel. I do put stories in there to at least make the subjects interesting. They are real stories. In most cases, I had to change the names so that you don't know who they are. Yeah, I mean, if you get the book is nice to get because it's a paper copy that you can write on. But if you like ebooks, it does come in Kindle. But it definitely is a workbook. Will help you go down the path. And I've seen people change jobs just after the first 4 chapters. Wow. So, and I'm talking about people outside of Lockheed that were in completely different fields, because just doing the first 4 chapters and understanding what you bring to the table and being able to sell yourself, I've seen people get promotions and because just they know how to present to their bosses and the people in power what they're bringing to the table.
Excellent. Okay, here's a question from Selena Camacho. Again, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. Do you have any tips on how to start a conversation with someone about mentoring, or tips on how to find a mentor? Other than going to carolevanoff.com.
I have lots. Yeah. Or reading my book. A whole bunch of ideas. But the best source to start with is your manager, if you have a good manager. If you don't have a good manager, then the best source to talk to is people in WIN, people in leadership in WIN.
Right.
I saw a few names flash across the screen. Lily Anderson, she's a great mentor. So, they're there, people that you can ask. But for me, I found throughout my career, if all I did was email someone and say, would you mind having a 30-minute mentoring session with me? It can be after work, it can be at lunch, it can be, whatever. And almost, okay, let's see. In 35 years, did I ever have anybody turn me down? I think maybe one time. And the guy said, Carol, we don't want any women in that job.
Oh, that's really unfortunate that you heard that, but
and he said it out loud.
Right, but at least it only happened once.
But it only happened once, so the risk is not really high that people will turn you down. And ask. That's the biggest thing is ask.
Yeah. I do want to definitely second what Carol mentioned. With Denver WIN anyway, we have a number of mentoring events. We have another virtual mentor mixer that's being planned right now. I believe that's going to happen in October. I'm not sure, but definitely reach out to us if you're looking for a mentor and you haven't been able to find the right person. Reach out to us. We may be able to share our network with you and put you in touch with somebody that you don't know yet. Okay.
And shock, it's okay to have more than one mentor.
Oh, yes. It's a great idea to have more than one. Yes. Okay. Here's a question from Duncan Shields. There are a lot of leadership development programs at Lockheed Martin. How can those help?
They can give you time in leadership where you can, the other thing is they typically add mentoring to that program. So you automatically going into that program, you not only get the experience in leadership positions, but you also already have mentors set up who are interested in developing you. So it kind of adds those two components, is having that under your belt as well as being able to have mentorship. I used to mentor lots of people in those programs. And there's a lot of my peers who mentored as well, and it's a real good way to learn something new and learn leadership skills. Leadership skills are not the same as technical skills. I can tell you, it's much easier for me to fix my tractor than it is to fix people. So you need mentors, and you need people you can talk to figure out how to deal with issues with people and people problems.
Right. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Demetria asks a follow-up to our previous question. When you mentioned this person who said to you, "I'm sorry, we don't want to. I don't want to mentor you because we don't want any women in this role." Um, when you, it's not often that people will be so blunt about that. Oftentimes you maybe just don't get a response back or whatever, but the result is the same in that it can damage your confidence and can and affect your mental health a little bit. How did you respond to those kinds of things whenever they've come up across your career?
I think the first thing you need to understand as women is that it's not your problem, it's their problem. The person who doesn't want you on their team just doesn't understand that you would help them do much better if you were in their organization. And you have to try to work and not take it personally, that they don't want you in their job, in that job. And it's really hard because women especially take it so personally. But I can tell you this, it isn't you. It isn't you. So don't let it be about you.
Right.
Let it be about them.
That's a great response to that. Thank you for that. Here's another question from an anonymous attendee. What if you don't quite know what you truly enjoy and love to do? Is there a particular exercise one can do to help make this more clear?
I think you want to pay attention to the things that you're doing and what things give you energy and what things take energy away. What things you enjoy. You want to be a broad reader. You want to be somebody who uses their social media to get input. And what will happen is, as you start observing all the things that are going on and all the things that are happening, you'll look at something, you'll say, oh man, that would just be so fun to do. You'll just naturally feel it. But you have to expose yourself. If you don't expose yourself to anything outside your current world, you're not going to know that these things are going to be exciting for you. Right. So you want to make sure that you have lots of exposure to different things that are going on, different technologies. You know, make sure on LinkedIn you sign up for Cheddar. They're always showing new technologies and new industries and you know, it's fun. You want to do everything you can to expose yourself to as many things as you can. The other thing that does is it opens your mind to be more creative. And you tend to be more creative in your problem solving by having more exposure to more things. So don't be afraid to experiment and try different things, and try different things on a personal level. I had a mechanic, it was a warehouse worker who wanted to be a mechanic. He wanted to work in our maintenance services building, which required carpenter skills and machining skills and things like that. And so I sat down with him and I said, well, you know, do you have anybody in your family or friends that does machining or does, you know, carpentry? And he said, well, yeah, my father has a construction business. I said, well, now's your chance. Go find out, you know, what you need to do and work for him on the weekends so that you can get experience and put that on your resume and then apply for the job. And he did, and he got the job.
That's a great idea.
So, you know, sometimes that experience, you know, the experience is good no matter how you get it. I had a janitor in the school district that wanted to be in the maintenance department. And so I said, okay, guess what? On the weekend, you're going to come out to my property in the Olympics and you're going to help me maintain all my equipment and my tractors. And so I taught him how to do all that. He learned how to weld. I had him weld this big, huge gate. And so he started putting all that stuff on his resume. Now, 5 years later, he's the supervisor of the maintenance group at the school. He's also the vice president of the union.
Wow, that's fantastic. That's a great point. Most of the time we think that experience has to come from on the job experience, and maybe it doesn't. It can come from wherever you can get it in your spare time. Right. Too. That's excellent.
Yeah. You want to learn bookkeeping? Go do the bookkeeping for your church.
Yeah, right.
You want to learn how to, just lots of places.
Sure. Catherine Irish has raised her hand, so I've unmuted her. Catherine, can you speak up? Oh, I'm not hearing Catherine.
Can
She
you hear
has
me
to
now?
unmute herself.
Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
I can hear you now.
Well, I misunderstood. I was trying to type. I already typed a question, and I don't know if you could see my question. I typed already.
I probably can. Let's see. Unless you submitted it anonymously.
No, I didn't. But well, the question was, I received a graduate degree back in 2007, but so far I have not found the job that allows me to use that degree yet. And then, so for when interviewing for other jobs, is it a good idea to discuss experience from school, or is it better to try to keep it work related? And then how do I find a new job that will allow me to use what I learned in school?
I think it's good to talk about your schooling and what you have. Your bosses may even have an idea who does that type of work. What you want to do is some research as to who does the work in your field. If your education is where your passion is, it's that technology, then you want to go find what group does it and then start applying for their jobs. If you want some help with that, feel free to email me and we can work on it.
Okay, thanks, Catherine. Alex has asked a question. Alex Dukes, what do you recommend for someone who only knows their next 1 to 2 years, but has a hard time understanding their options beyond that next promotion?
Then just keep going and keep open and keep looking, and you will find your passion. But what you want to do is keep making progress, and keep doing what you're doing. If 2 years is as far as you can see, then go for 2.
Okay. Let's see. How soon? This is from Jessica Weens. How soon should you have the 2 or 5 year plan meeting with your manager when starting your career? Should you do it right away, or should you wait a year or so to kind of get your feet underneath you?
I would wait 6 months.
Okay, excellent.
Because what you want to do is prove that you're a stellar performer first, so that when you go see him, he'll want to invest in you.
Okay. Let's see. Here's a question from Nikki Abeda. I worry sometimes that we might miss opportunities if we're not physically in the office in front of leadership on a regular basis. Do you have any recommendation on facilitating these career discussions and planning conversations in a remote environment?
Yes, life is different being remote. And so what you need to learn is to try to get your boss on Zoom. Try to make sure your boss sees you face to face like we're doing today. If you've got a project that needs to be briefed out, try to do it on Zoom so that he's looking at your face and you're looking at his face or her face, and do the presentation like I did here with the presentation on the screen and being able to present it, because you've got to have the visibility. Not only do you have to have the visibility to your boss, but you have to have the visibility to your boss's boss if you're wanting to go to the next level, because you have to know who is it that's going to choose that next person that gets promoted. Those are the people that need to see you. And in the environment where we're not at work and we're not going to regular meetings, that visibility goes away. So you're going to have to use technology to do that. So when you presented it to your boss and you said, and he says, wow, this is really great. You say to him, hey, I'd like to get some exposure with your boss. Would you support me in having me give this presentation to your boss?
Yeah. Okay,
and
great.
In fact, I'm doing that this week. I have a guy that's doing modeling and he wants to, do some more modeling for the customer. And so he pitched to my boss yesterday. He's pitching to the vice president tomorrow.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So that's how you get there that's how you get there.
Okay, Melissa Callis asks, you mentioned that women typically stay in a role for too long. How do we know when it's time to move on from our current role?
Yes, it's very hard because so many of us base it on our feelings rather than on our intellect. And you have to write down all the reasons you're staying. And if all the reasons you're staying are nurturing reasons and emotional reasons, you need to step back and say, okay, am I too emotional about this, and is it slowing down my progress? And because yeah, you don't want to leave the group you're in. You've got all this stuff that's just half done, but you know, it's important that you train somebody that's going to take your place and will continue to nurture those employees that you're leaving. I never left any employees in a lurch. And I could tell you this, you could go to every building in Sunnyvale and there'd be somebody in that building that knew me. And always in a positive way, because I didn't desert people, and they all had my email and they all had my phone number. And so, but yeah, it's real hard for women, especially, to move to the next job because they feel so invested in the group that they're in.
Sure.
And you have to get over it.
Okay.
That's hard.
It is hard. It's very hard. And it can be really scary too if you're trying something new. That element of fear when you're branching out and trying a new thing can be prohibitive sometimes, and that's scary and hard.
And that's why it's good to have a good mentor who can encourage you and help you through that fear.
Yeah. I like what you said earlier I like what you said earlier about if you don't feel at least a little bit scared, that means that you might not be learning anymore. You might not be growing anymore. So it's always good to be in a position where you feel a little bit afraid, because that way you know you're still growing.
That's right.
and getting better and getting smarter. Okay,
yep, absolutely.
Tuya Billington asks, I have excellent mentoring and management in my team. However, I always considered this position as a foot in the door at Lockheed, but now I'm afraid to switch positions because of uncertainty of what the other team's management might be like. What is your situation on a take like this, or what's your take on a situation like this?
That you need to move.
Okay. Simple as that, huh? If you get to that point.
And what you have to learn is how to manage your leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So if you get into that next job and they're not as receptive, you know, you have to show them that you're a stellar performer. You have to sit down with them and do your development plan. You got to sit down with them and ask them for the assignments. If they don't support you and don't help you, then you move.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How can you?
Sometimes you have to move back to where you are as well.
Right.
So sometimes you'll go backwards.
Mm-hmm. That's actually, there's another question coming up about that, I think. Here's an anonymous question. How can you tell the difference between a rough patch or growing pains on a program versus really knowing it's time to move on and find a new position?
Are you leaving because the program's having problems or the team is having problems?
It's not clear.
Can the person answer that question?
Since it was submitted anonymously, they may not want to speak up, but we'll see if they typed anything at the bottom.
Okay.
I don't see anything. So they may have not be willing to speak up at this point. That's fine. We'll move on to another question. That's okay.
Okay.
Go ahead. Let's see. So where do you draw the line when you've been told you'll move into a position permanently and are now going on 2 years filling in for that position? Is it better to go back to what you were doing with the team before and look for another position in a different group? It sounds like maybe somebody's been taken advantage of a little.
It's always better to stay in that leadership role,
Okay.
but then apply for leadership position somewhere else.
Okay.
Because the more time you get in the leadership role, the better off you are in the selection criteria.
Okay.
But after 2 years, you should be looking for another leadership position somewhere else.
Okay. This is a kind of a similar question. If you're asked to take over a job that someone a level higher than you has done previously, how do you politely insist that you deserve the same title that they had? So the background here is you've had the same amount of experience that that person had when they started in that role, and they've been training you to be their backfill, but they aren't part of the hiring process. So you know, maybe they're an E5 and they're asking you to step into that person's role, but they don't want to make you an E5. They want you to stay as an E4. What do you recommend in that situation?
I think that happens a lot, especially to women.
Mm-hmm.
But getting the experience on your resume outweighs anything else. So you want to get the experience on your resume, even if it's at a higher level, but you don't want to sit there for too long. If you've been sitting at a higher level for a year and they haven't promoted you, then you need to look for other jobs. But at this point now you're qualified for the higher level because it's on your resume. Okay. And so it's getting it on the resume that's the most important.
Okay. Let's see. Jack Garrett asks, what was your favorite job? Did you know that it was a good fit at the time? And if so, how did you know?
My favorite job was being the resident director at SwiftPack because it was my facility. I got to create the culture. I got to train the managers. I got to develop all the people. So I didn't have someone constantly stopping me from doing what I wanted to do. So for me, it was very energizing and very fun. But every job I had was fun because I was developing people, and that was my passion. So I see that, Lily.
Lily says, you're the best RD ever.
Yeah.
Okay, we have time for maybe one more question. I told Carol that we would end promptly at 3:55, and I maybe have one more question here. From my understanding, women experience imposter syndrome more frequently than men. What kind of advice would you provide to your mentees to overcome this?
I think one of the important things is knowing what you bring to the table. You need to write down everything that you're bringing to the table. What is all your experience? What's all your education? What's all your traits? What's all your strengths? Because by understanding who you are more, you can be more confident in yourself, and you're less likely to fall for the I'm an imposter in this job, or I'm not really qualified for this job. I can tell you this, a lot of the time, men are put in jobs because they have potential, not because they have demonstrated performance. Women tend to get put in jobs because they have demonstrated performance. So the chance that you're an imposter is very slim.
That's good to know, actually. I know I suffer with this one, and probably many other people do too on the call. Okay, unfortunately, we're all out of time. I did want to say thank you again to Carol for agreeing to come and speak with us today. I think you guys can still see the chart that's out there. If you have questions for Carol, all of her information is here. Definitely visit her website, and you can contact her directly for mentoring if that's something that you're interested in. And also buy her book. You can buy it on Amazon, or if you're cash strapped and you aren't able to afford it, it sounds like she's willing to provide you a PDF copy for free. So thank you so much, Carol, for being here, and thank you for your generous offer of providing that book free to the people who are here today. We appreciate it. Thanks so much for all the questions. You guys had really awesome questions, and I really appreciate everybody being so engaged and just giving us all of your great questions. This event was recorded, so I'll post a link to the replay in the Win Wednesday newsletter that's coming out tomorrow. All right. Thanks so much, everybody.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
Thank you, Carol.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.